head into 2025, the technology landscape has just been rapidly evolving so quickly. And if you're a painting company owner, you are probably feeling overwhelmed with the number of choices of software that there are that you can potentially tie or integrate into your business. This is the one application that I think every single painting company needs to be using in 2025, and it is Airtable. Now, what you need to know before just going and signing up for Airtable is that Airtable is a blank canvas, a no-code database tool that allows you to literally build a custom application for your painting company in Airtable however you want. It integrates with ChatGPT and Zapier and all of the technology and automation things that are out there that everybody wants to use. But this is like your source of truth that facilitates your scheduling, your planning, forecasting. It automates job costing. It brings in your time tracking data. It literally takes in all the data from your CRM, everything into one place, and allows you to do some pretty incredible reporting. So in this video, we actually are revealing our latest version of Airtable that we have made, and we're calling this the BOOLEAN Paint OS system. And this is the project management system that I believe every painting company needs to be running their business with in 2025. So this is a recording of me walking through how it's going to work for one of our new clients that we just built this for. So it's a little slow moving video, but you're going to see and answer every single question you have on what are the capabilities, how does it work, how does someone use it, how does the office use it versus the field use it versus sales. But that's what we're going to be diving into in this video. Hopefully you enjoy it, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Be happy to do any other tutorials or walkthroughs that would be valuable. This is how I think is helpful to process or understand this, but I'll start with the objects inside of HubSpot. So you've got a company, contact, and deals. Deals can be associated to both companies and contacts. Contacts can be associated to companies and deals, and companies, same thing. When a deal is won, it comes into Airtable, and that deal is essentially converted into a job. So one job is, or when a deal is won, it is moved into Airtable as a job. If there are multiple project types on that job, which, Sean, do you guys plan on doing that occasionally?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a fan of typically having one project type per HubSpot deal, but it is allowed to have multiple project types on a HubSpot deal. And that's like, in this case, the project types inside of the job are interior and carpentry. And then every job is given multiple projects, and the projects, so you can see here's one project, here's the other project. This first project also has a change order on it. It's the addendum, but there's one job with two projects in this case. The most important thing to understand between the job and the project is that the project is what actually gets scheduled on the calendar. So you cannot schedule a job on the calendar. Only projects can get actually put on a calendar. And the other thing is that the job, every single job in Airtable will get a parent customer in QuickBooks, and every project will get a sub customer in QuickBooks that's tied to that parent. The reason why that matters, because I know most of you aren't using QuickBooks or don't care about that, is because the structure of the customers in QuickBooks is what enables invoicing to happen at the right cadence or groupings of projects, because all invoicing happens to the parent customer. So you can think of it as because we're invoicing the parent customer, that means that all invoices are tied to the job, not to projects. So projects are actually line items on an invoice for a job. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other thing is that all hours that get assigned, all hours are always attributed to sub customers, which again, because sub customers are tied to projects, every hour that is worked is assigned to a project, not to a job. And that's what allows you to do job costing at the project level. So every single project, we can tell you what your profitability is because all hours were assigned to the project and all expenses get assigned to projects as well. Then we can roll that up and say, here's your profitability for each project. And then we can sum those and tell you what your profitability was at the job level. So that's the first thing to understand is just jobs and projects. They are related. All jobs have one project at least, and some jobs can have 100 or however many you want. And then the only other thing I'll point out when it comes to jobs and projects is that your job number is going to look something like this. We've got the year, so 24, soon to be 25, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the project is that same base job number with a -1. And then the next project is a -2, and then a -3, and -4, -5, and so on. So all numbering is going to be, you've got your job number, and then your project numbers are always going to have a dash and then a sequential, like which one is this? So that, I think, is helpful context. Now, when we jump back into this, notice that the coordinator has new jobs. That's what the title of this is, because these are all jobs that came in, and we can't schedule jobs. We need to actually convert those jobs into one or more projects, and we schedule the projects.
Chris, for simplicity, are PMs basically, or managers living in a project-based world though? They might look at a job profitability and stuff, but for you guys are going to live in projects, not necessarily the job. An example would be McHugh, that big exterior interior we did, separate times, separate expenses and everything. We would do an interior project, an exterior project, and it would have one McHugh job. So we could look at the profitability and everything individually or as a sum.
So we're going to get projects, not jobs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, exactly. And the reason why it's important to understand that relationship is that you might be managing the project, multiple projects for the same job, but we also allow we allow different managers for different projects of the same job. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but it is a function that can be facilitated, if that makes sense. And then I thought of one other chart here, speaking of assignments. And these are they might seem minor, but this is also really important, is that the roles. So we have 5 roles in the system, and that has one person assigned to each role. So on the job level, a sales rep is assigned, meaning the one who sold it clearly. And then the coordinator, which again is either D or Anissa, that's assigned at the job. So a job comes in, and then Anissa is going to say, I'm the coordinator on this, or we could default it to D or Anissa or one or the other. But they're the coordinator on that job. And then the coordinator can decide who's my manager for the project that I just made, who's the lead on the project that I just made, and are there any crew members that are also going to be on that project. Does that make sense? And Matt has a question.
Yeah, just about the job and the project. So say we have a job that comes in, so break it into projects, and then 8 months from now, a separate new contract comes in for a job. Would that live still with the same parent person, and we just keep up running total of new projects, or will we start a brand new job?
Yeah, great question. So when you say the parent, you're now talking about QuickBooks, right?
Well, just what the main job contact, I guess.
Yeah. So every deal in HubSpot, when it is won, it gets its own job in Airtable, and then the customer in QuickBooks, the display name of the customer, of that parent customer, is specifically that individual job. So a new job for the same customer, they would get a new parent customer in QuickBooks with a different, job number, but this part might be the same if it's the same, like the rest of the detail there. but every job gets its own parent customer in QuickBooks. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yeah, not necessarily QuickBooks, but yeah, I understand.
Okay.
If sales creates a new deal 8 months from now, because it's a new opportunity to do business, it will be a new job in Airtable. But we
Yeah.
could have a project that stays open under a job for 8 months if the GC is not ready for us. We might go prime and wait 8 months to come back and finish it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So it's booked as a job. It takes us however long to finish up the project.
And that's actually the other thing that I would say I like about the structure of this. So let's say that I'm going to make this a much bigger job. So let's say that it's $18,000. Well, let's do 48,000. So it's a $48,000 job contract, and we've got an interior and an exterior. So Anissa or D is going to come in, and you have to tell the system how the revenue is broken up between the projects, because it doesn't know that automatically. It can't read the quote, at least not yet. So if I say this is a 24,000, whoops, this one is 24,000. And this one down here at the bottom, you can see that it's telling us the unassigned job revenue. So this is the remaining amount of the job that hasn't been assigned to a project. So I'm going to put the other amount here. So now I've got all my revenue is assigned. Let's go ahead and change the hours to be like 400. So now I've got 400 hours, and I'm going to say this one was going to be 210, and this one is 190 hours. And then my subcontractor labor, this is the agreed upon price that you are paying the subs, and you can do that independently for each project. In this case, we didn't have a subcontractor price yet at the job level, but we could say the subcontractor price on this is, I don't know, 12,000. And that's at the job level. What's that?
This is the PM's responsibility, so it won't be done here.
Does the PM also decide the total for the job, or the sales rep would?
The PM.
Got it. Okay. So then D, or that's a good clarification. So as far as D's job, you would just distribute amount and hours across the projects and then leave the subcontractor blank. And then you're also not assigning the lead, I assume. That's the PM that does that?
Either or, depends on the situation.
Would D assign the project manager before scheduling it or after scheduling it?
While scheduling.
It's a mix of both. When do you need to go? What's the job? Who's next available and stuff like that. So,
okay. So we're going to add that.
Probably going to be scheduled.
Yeah. So we'll add the manager to this.
So to clarify, what this is similar to when we phase out a Salesforce project. You know how we get one project and then D or we have to break it up into 2 or 3? We can break it up to 2 or 3 as soon as we get it from sales. So you get a Pat Damone and you want it 3 phases.
Yeah.
We break it up right away. Then you schedule out the 3 phases from that.
I have a quick question on the jobs and projects. Can we invoice from both? So can we invoice projects? If they're phases, can we invoice from the project? And then if it's a job and we're waiting for all 3 things to be done at once, you know, it's just different crews or something, then we would want one invoice at the job level.
If we're done the job, we're invoicing for whatever is done. We're invoicing each part.
But can we invoice separately the project? So if it's a phase situation, can I invoice the first project without closing the whole job?
Yeah.
Knowing that we're coming back in a
Because
month
you're
to do
just
the next
closing a
project.
project, because we're
Okay.
breaking it out into 3 different projects. So the interior, exterior carpentry, we're
Right.
breaking all of that out. Once carpentry is done, because that goes first, we're billing that.
Okay.
Interior billing,
Okay.
exterior billing.
So my follow-up question to that is, when we're not doing it in phases, when we're doing, we'll say like Lisa Dreyfus, where Matt did all the painting and then I did the carpentry, we would want to build those together. Will we build that at the job level, like invoice that at the job level, or will we be sending like, when Matt was done with the painting, would you invoice the painting and then waited for me to do the carpentry?
Whatever's done first. If the painting was done first, I'm billing for that. If the carpentry was done before that, I'm billing because it's already broken up.
Mhm.
So you see how much each because you know how we had to wait for the price. I'm already putting it in and splitting it up before the project's even ready.
Right, I would think that Lisa would expect one
I
invoice
was
for
gonna
the
say, I think
project.
what he's asking is when we break it up into projects, is there a way to revert back to job to send a full invoice?
Yes,
Right?
that's exactly.
Yes.
So-
Yeah. So I think we should come back to it. Short answer is D. I'm super proud. That was fantastic. You nailed it. The other thing is, yes, you can have multiple projects on one invoice, but everything else Steve said is exactly like, yeah, she can bill and it's easy to send an invoice as projects get completed. The adjustments that I just made here are and if someone wants to just make a note that I cover that when we talk about invoicing, I'll make sure to answer those questions. But as far as this goes, so we broke it into an interior and exterior. Let's say that I don't know if you would know this in advance, so I'll show this to you, D, and you can tell me if this would never happen or if this is something that a project manager would do. But let's say that I know that Matt is going to take this one and Gary's going to take this one. I don't know if that's common, but let's just say that she assigns those managers. Then let's say that the exterior, that you actually know that this is, even though it's one project type, we know that that exterior portion is actually going to be 2 phases. So it's still one, like we have an interior, which is going to happen all at once, and the exterior is going to happen like a month apart. Rather than keeping this open on the calendar for a month, because it would have a start date and an end date that's not accurate, meaning there's a bunch of days in the middle where nothing happened, but it says that there was. So what you can do is we can add a new project, or I could even duplicate this existing one. And then I'm going to change this to the 3rd sequence in the event. And I'm going to say that this first one is going to be 14,000 and the second one is going to be 10,000. So there still has to be a judgment call by someone to say, how are we breaking up the hours on this and the revenue? And I don't know, again, whose responsibility that would be. But you can see now, again, I can check my math. Everything, I've distributed all the revenue and the hours, but this is how you would, like the projects, that's a big thing to understand, is that you want to make sure that if there is a dead time for a week or a month or even longer, I would recommend closing out or like duplicating the project and then saying, this is the amount of revenue that we just completed in like the first phase of our exterior, because that's what's going to allow D to invoice the first part that was done, even though we're waiting 3 months to do the second part. So the whole job stays as a on hold or in scheduled stage as far as the status of the job. So we could say this is in progress, and 2 of the projects on the job are done, but this one's not going to happen for 2 more months. And then D can send an invoice for each individual, like every project is its own line item on the invoice. So you could send an invoice with 1 line item, or you could send an invoice with multiple line items, which would be the interior and the first phase of the exterior. Does that make sense?
I think what will help is the invoices aren't as automatic as Salesforce. So it gives us a second to pause and say, do we want to send this individual line item invoice, or do we want to send the entire job invoice?
Yeah.
Someone will have a choice what to send.
Cool.
So once the sorry, D, you are choosing the date, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So after, let's go back to this publish. And I don't know if you guys have any other notes or edits on what you want to see here, D. But the sequence and the project type, those are pretty essential. So same with amount and hours. The rest of this, if you feel like it's extremely rare that you would assign a lead at this point, I would probably hide this one too. The predecessor is nice because it just is allowing you to say which thing has to happen before the next project starts. You don't have to have predecessors. So like if the interior and the exterior can happen simultaneously, then I can remove the predecessor for the exterior. And that allows me on the schedule to have the interior and the exterior start simultaneously. But if the interior has to be completed before the exterior starts, that's where you would come in and say, okay, the predecessor for this exterior is that the interior is done. Does that make sense? Okay. And then now I'm going to go open up the schedule view for this project. So here's the first one. And all D needs to do is, and again, I think I just asked this, but D is sometimes assigning the lead or always assigns the lead, and then the manager just manages it.
I
Mostly.
mostly assign the lead,
Okay.
and if anything, the manager might change it.
Okay. So I was going to say, I like scheduling the lead before you schedule the start date. And that's because we're taking the production capacity of each individual sub and giving you a rough timeline of how long the project's going to be on the calendar. So if you put the start date in before you assign the lead, then it's just going to put it on the calendar for one day. Whereas in this case, it's 210 hours, and if I assign Luciano, and now I put the start date, so I'm going to say we're going to do this one starting the day after Christmas. It automatically filled the end date based on what Luciano's production capacity is, and then it put in a tentative end date of January 3rd. That doesn't mean that you can't change it. So if we go look at this project for Luciano.
At the bottom there.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So I forgot, it's under the manager. I saw Luciano's name up there. So yeah, it puts it on the calendar here. And then D, you could come in and say, well, we have to get this done before, whatever the first. So we're going to tell him he needs to get more guys or something. And I can manually adjust the start date either by dragging like that, or inside I can just type in the date that I want it to end. So that's the first part with getting it on the calendar. And that's, I think, as far as we need to go in terms of the scheduling piece. Then we can jump into the manager unless you guys have questions. Because at this point, the project is on the calendar, a lead is assigned, and we have start and end dates, and the manager is assigned as well. If I would say the D or Anissa, you would never want to be done with scheduling until you are sure that a manager has it and it has dates. So if a manager is not assigned, that's not good because they're not going to see that in their interface. Actually, I should clarify. I think that's not correct. We changed it so that managers see all projects, which I think is fine. I don't know if you guys have a preference there, but we can add a filter to see my projects only, but still give you the flexibility to look at everyone's. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
I think the default would be but the ability to look at all.
Okay. So that's the first one. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and throw these other ones on here for the exterior. We'll say that this is going to be Elias, and we're going to start it there. And notice that I just drug it onto the calendar, and because I didn't put because I didn't assign a lead first, it just put it in as one day. So I'm just doing that on purpose to say, now let's say I take the dates off of this, and now I go assign a lead first.
So that's a right for Elias, by the day.
When I drug it onto Elias's, it said, or it gave it to Elias, if that makes sense. But if I had Elias on here first and then put the start date of January 6th, and what is Elias's capacity? It's 90 hours. Is that 45? Is that possible?
50 hours.
Yeah. So then it puts it on the calendar for 2 days. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then the last one here, we'll throw this on and say that this is whatever. We're going to take that. And by dragging it to Elias, I'm assigning the lead. But again, if you do that, you just have to do the math and figure out how many days you want it to last. And then the last thing I'll show you is because this one has a predecessor of this one, if I go to move this to start here, it's going to force moving the other one because of them being tied to each other. So if I want to be able to overlap, like if you're ever doing that, D or Anissa, and you're wondering why is it doing that, you need to open this up and take away the predecessor that is in here, which is, we're gonna have that here.
I don't know if it's shown here.
Yeah, let me hide that or unhide that. And again, the other, just like you're probably starting to piece all this together, but there's a ton of data that's in the back end of that's tied to projects. And so, like, most likely, if you're like, hey, I want to know whatever crazy statistic or variable about a given project or job, it's probably in the system. We just need to bring it to your interface so you can see it. So like I just did there, now I can see the predecessor and I can delete that. And then when I go back to move it, now because there's no link between those, I can overlap them if I wanted to. All good there? Okay, so we've assigned these two projects. We got Elias on the exterior, Luciano on the interior. And who do we say? So Matt's managing this one, Gary's managing these two. So if I go into the subcontractor space first, and I'm gonna first view this as, what's that?
I was gonna say I hit it for current user so that they only see.
Yeah,
The subs aren't there at the Airtable user yet.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is basically impersonate Elias with my Airtable user. So if I go to Elias and say that I am now support, that this is the user that I'm logged into. And managers, you probably won't be doing this, but for Rika or Sean, this is where I'm saying the current user in Airtable is tied to Elias. So now when I go preview this and I want to watch it as I'm viewing it as myself, when I go to the sub, now I see Elias's projects because my Airtable user is tied to Elias. Does that make sense?
So this is what Elias would see when he logs in, Gary.
Yeah.
Only projects.
So I open this up, and again, because I'm a sub, we've removed a lot of the options that production people or employees have. But I can log an expense or open the company cam timeline. There's no pictures in there right now. If I wanted to log an expense for this, I go to the form here and I would say this is a material expense for,
Chris, the only thing was a sub, because they're a view only, they don't have access to this form. So they're not able to add expenses.
Subs, we can make it subs. Well, I guess that's an option. Do you want subs to be able to submit expenses? And I just want to interrupt this video briefly to say, if this is something that looks interesting to you, please grab a time. We do free consultations. We do a lot more than Airtable. There's so much automating that goes on inside of your business. But I just want to say that if you are considering or wondering what does it look like to work with Boolean, first of all, we do, I would say of all the discovery calls that we do, we probably only proceed into a second or third discovery with about a third of them. So 2/3 of the people that we meet through our YouTube channel, we're trying to give away free resources and tools and tricks and things that are going to help you get to the next level without using us, because we are in a very blessed position to have so many people that want our expertise and our knowledge, and we're just trying to rapidly put it out and give it away as fast as we can. And for the select few that really would like us to work together with them and actually implement it, that's what we do for a select few clients. But for everyone else, I just want to help the entire painting industry level up their knowledge. So that's what we do here at Boolean, and enjoy the rest of this walkthrough.
We will talk internally about that and company cam, because we might still want to give them company cam access.
Okay, because I was going to say, I think, I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that forms in Airtable can be filled out by view-only users.
Okay, I created a fake account as a view-only user, and it would not let me.
It's possible that on the share here, if you have only users with base access versus anyone from the web.
Okay.
And now if I switch it to anyone, like if any one of you in the room right now that's not logged into anything, you just go to this form and submit an expense.
Okay.
That's probably why it's not working for you. But so if I go in and say I'm logging into expense here, so I'm going to say it's a material expense for $120. I take a picture on my phone and throw an image in here. Let's do that. So there's the receipt. And then if I wanted to put in notes, I can, but I'm going to go ahead and submit that expense. Now, down here, we didn't assign. Let me go to the manager first. So for that Darth Maul project, and actually I need to make sure that in my people, I'm also, who is assigned to Elias?
Gary.
Which one?
I believe Gary.
Gary, yeah. So I'm also going to assign my Airtable user to Gary as well, so I can see what Gary would see. So I'm taking this off. Gary will switch this back later, but I'm going to say now my Gary is tied to my user. So if I go to the manager interface again, I'm going to see what Gary would see. And so this one here in the financials section, this is where I would type in how much we're planning on paying the subs for that project. And if we want to rework this, we can, but let's say that we're going to pay him $2,000 for this. That's where you would put in the amount that you've agreed to pay that person. And then the budget. So this is the contract amount, meaning like of the original contract that was sold. This is including any pushback. Are you guys going to allow that, Sean?
No.
Okay, so pushback's irrelevant, but it would include any additional change orders that have been added. So the subcontractor amount on the change order would get added to the total here. So the budget is basically the original plus any changes that have happened to get you your budgeted amount to pay the sub. This shows you how much you have paid, and then the materials that have already been accrued on the project. In this case, I think the material I just submitted was to the second one, not the first one. So this is saying there's no materials. If you wanted to log an expense as a manager, you could also do that same exact thing. So I could say I had $400 of materials from Sherwin, or I guess it's not in there. We'll just say Sky, and an image again. So when I submit this back in the table here, you can see I've paid, or the total materials on the project is 400. My budget for the sub was 2,000. I've already paid him 200, and so I still owe him 1,400, which is the budget minus expenses minus what we already paid.
So do you see the math there of how it's calculating for you guys?
And so when you go to pay the sub, I was going to do, let me do one other thing first. So my other projects, I think this one here, let's make sure that we have dollar amounts in all these. So this one, if I said we're going to pay him 2,500 for this, and let's look at the last one. This one is 3,000. So now I've put in a dollar amount of what we're going to pay for each one of those projects. So if I go look on the sub, I can see here that actually I'm realizing on the subcontractor one, we don't want to show hours, right?
No, we want to show the dollars.
Okay, so let's swap that out real fast. So now they would see at the bottom of each one of their projects how much they're getting paid for that project. So I can quickly see, okay, it's a $2,500 project. I click into it, and I would see that the amount on this one is $2,500. I've already spent $120. They haven't paid me anything on this project, so they owe me $2,380. And then again, if I want to say, okay, now I'm going to log an expense, I can do that. like before, material expense, we're going to say I had $750 of materials and upload my receipt. And submit that. And so then back here, I also, this is one thing I just added last night, Sean, you can see like a running, it's like a ledger of assigned or like expenses that are tied to this. So if you're wondering what are the $870 or if the sub is, it just is a single line that says there was a material expense for $120 and it was on the 18th. And this one was for $750 and so on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, can we change what's shown there?
Mm-hmm. What would you like?
Instead of the project name, because it's already tied to the project, the vendor. So they can see I bought 5 things at Sherwin-Williams. If they're like, I only went to the store 4 times, it will allow them to see that.
Do you have a preference on the order of those things?
No, I think just replace the project with vendor.
Okay, so back in the interface here. So then I can see and this one looks like I didn't put a vendor in, but this one was 15M media.
So I would just say Eric Riccardi, so everyone sees.
Yeah. So now let's go to the manager portion. So to talk through the payment of people on this in the financial section, you can see that the amount that we still owe to the sub is $1630. And there's a whole bunch of these little tiny details that it's so hard to predict. So I keep everything like pretty bland. But if you guys have preferences on like the order in which things show up, like let's say you want to see the subcontractor amount that's still owed right at the top and you want it to be really big, like we can do that easily. You will have to set it up as a group and decide on the best structure. We can't customize it for each of you, but just keep that in mind, Sean, that it is easy to move stuff around and say like, that's what's most important. And that's what we want to see at the top. And then this is basically your math. So however you want to do that is fine. And I'll move this back to how I had it, but just know that. So when I am ready to pay the person, and let's say that in this case, I have not paid anything. So let's say the project's starting and he's asking for an initial, upfront payment. I click the create sub bill payment. And what happens is it automatically fills the project and the sub that's working. The one note here that the reason it looks weird is because we don't have your vendors, or all of your subs are not listed as vendors inside of QuickBooks. So we need to tie the subcontractor to a vendor record inside of QuickBooks, Sean. It's a side detail. But basically, the subcontractor is automatically going to be filled in with the vendor that represents that sub's business from QuickBooks. And that's technical stuff in the back end. All you guys need to know is it's going to autofill with the total amount that is still owed. So it does that for you. But then you could say, all right, we're not paying him $1630 because it just started. I'll pay him $630. And then I'm going to submit this. When you submit that, it's not actually sending money to his bank account. What it's doing is it's creating an expense inside of the record here. So now you can see I have a subcontractor expense. That would be the payment to the sub for $630. And instead of saying example vendor, it would be, the name of that sub's business and then the date that we paid him. When an expense is added to the expense table, it generates a bill inside of QuickBooks. So I'm explaining the process of how payment actually gets paid. So I submit an expense to the expense table. The automation runs in the background, generates a bill for every single expense in the expense table, including the subcontractor payment. And then the bookkeeper or whoever, Sean, manages that, would be able to go in and say, like, if you're the one cutting the checks from your bank account, you would go send the check and then mark the bill in QuickBooks as I paid it. But as far as the manager's job, your job is just submit what and how much you want to pay. And then that creates the bill. And then someone else's job is managing those bills and paying the bills. Does that make sense?
That's what Amber is going to do. Like how you've been emailing AP, she's going to see all this information in QuickBooks and say, here's the person and here's the amount that I need to pay them, the sum of all of the bills that you guys entered in this way. So the nice thing, a couple of notes on this is, one, you can do this at any point in the week. You don't have to do it all Thursday night so that we can pay them Friday. So you can do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And at some point, it's just be a cutoff of when she logs in, anything that's in there by that point in time. The other nice thing is this is a running number. So let's say we're going to guess and pay them $1,500 on this job. And next week we put in $1,000 of expenses for material. We will now see that this project is overpaid and we can make sure we get that money back. So you don't have to go back and track, did any additional expenses get added? It will show us if we overpaid them on any of these.
If we overpay it on purpose, which happens, like we give them a PO and I'm like, I'm gonna give an extra $200 for this, will there be any issues with that in here?
We'll work through if we're going to change that field here, the labor contract expense, or what Chris was saying is if we do a change order, $0 to the customer, but a change order to the sub, it would update that number from 2,500 to 2,700 and it would balance it out.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'd probably say you guys should use the pushback process for that. We could rename it if you guys aren't going to use it. The pushback process, what it is basically when a job comes in and gets sold, what other companies do, and this can be for hourly employees or subs. Hourly employees are pushing back and requesting more hours to complete the work. Subs would be pushing back. That's what the name comes from, and saying, hey, I know you said you're going to pay me 2,000. Like I'd like 3,000, please. And then you have the ability to approve all of it, some of it, or none of it. And then that's what adds into the budget. So I would say, in my opinion, we should just add in that field of like, I'm going to approve some additional money to pay this person. And then that wouldn't affect your original contract amount. It would just affect your budget amount, which is what all of these ones are calculated from. Because when you met the change orders, as soon as you submit the change order, it does contracts and sends stuff to customers, and that gets more complicated. But yeah, I would say the pushback process, I don't know if you have a better name for it, but that would just basically be another button here, and you would be submitting like, I'm adding a bonus or like another kicker for X amount, and put in some notes as to why.
Yeah, cool.
Great.
Do we want to like officially do that, or is that something you want to think on and we'll tackle later?
Let's talk internally, and then we can test one or two.
Okay.
I can add that button back and we can try it and stuff. So,
Okay. Any other questions on just daily things that you guys would be doing?
just so you guys know, in this financial section, what we are working to change is we have the budgeted hours from sales. Is how do we want to look at, like we talked about, like doing the math to figure out what the pre-gross profit could be. So there will be some additional fields here to say, if I pay $2,500, what will my profit be? Or we can do, if I pay 38 a unit times 90, what's the total dollar amount? What's the profit going to be? We just need to pick one field that we want to update, whether it's a unit number or a total dollar amount, and it can calculate the other number. So if we say we want to do the unit, we might just have to do like 36.4 to get like, so we can talk about which ones we want, but the goal is to have, what's the total amount that they're going to get paid for it? We know our PO rate, we know the quantity, and we know what our profit will be if things go according to plan. That's the hope of what we'll see here. What will flow to the sub is just, how much am I paying you? They won't see any of the math behind it, but we're trying to make the math visible to you so you know what's going on in there.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, Sean. There's some options there. One thing I would add is it might be easier if you have a target gross profit that you're shooting for, that we basically just have fields that are auto calculating how much can be paid based on the assumption I want to hit 40% GP. That makes sense. It wouldn't be that much harder to say, allow the user to toggle in and enter what's my target GP that I would like on this, you know, but I see exactly where you're going with it, and that's a great idea.
Yeah, so today I think we're just going to leave the total dollar amount and we can work on it, and just Marcel's going to add a field just to say, if I pay $2,500, what's my gross profit going to be? And another field of, if I pay $2,500 over 90 units, what's that unit cost? So you guys know that we're in the ballpark of the 36, 37, 38 that we want to be in. And then we can, Chris, I think, yeah, get it better and make it a, you know, a tool versus a guess and check kind of thing.
Yeah. Anything else?
Chris, question for you is, we're going to be rolling this out to all these subcontractors. Do you have any trainings for them today, or anything that we could send them to say, here's how to use this? Or are we just going to, you know, call them in or go out there and show them?
I would say, can you show them the same content as the lead? So the lead interface, because it's 90% the same. The only difference, and you could just tell them, we just removed, the only difference between the video and what they're going to see is that you removed the buttons that they're not going to use. But everything else that's in that lead section, or the lead trainings, which is like, because that's the other key point, is that we treat subs and W-2 employees, they're both assigned as a lead to the project. So all they need to know is like, hey, this is, and in fact, what I could do, Kylie, if you could make a note, I could add a video that basically just gives some context of, keep in mind, everything I'm running through is going to be relevant to you. The one thing that might change is that your interface has a few more or a few less buttons than what I'm describing here, but everything else in that training session is relevant for both of them.
Okay. Do you speak Spanish and Portuguese? Could you record it in that?
Great idea.
I think Chris, we can probably create one ourselves. Like, we'll just record it on our phone, and we could talk to Ryan, Keith, Richard, somebody to help translate it into Spanish at a minimum. So
you can, just because we had one other person talk about this, just so you guys know, this would be a bigger project that you're going to want to like have I would definitely recommend get the production or the subcontractor interface exactly how you want. And then once you have it, like the perfect setup for the subs, then what I would recommend doing is you can actually clone the sub base or the sub interface. And so I could duplicate this and say, this is now the Spanish version of my sub interface. And then I could share you could have both versions be available. And this one could be literally, it's the same thing. You just say like sub Espanol, and then this is in Spanish. And then what it allows you to do is that each one of these, you on the display names of everything, you change the word to the Spanish word of that thing. So it's a manual process, but I have had clients do that where, like, inside of here, instead of saying quick access buttons, I go in and change the label to say whatever that is in Spanish. I don't know how, like, again, there's a lot of, once you split an interface, then know that anytime you make a change, you're changing it in two places. So I don't recommend doing that until you're like very confident that you have the perfect interface for the subs. But that is a one way around it. And the only thing, you can't change everything. You can just change the titles of each field. The title, like the actual field name in our system, stays the same. We're just changing the display words that show in the interface.
Okay.
One other thing that just remembering, in the interface for you guys, you're going to have your projects, and then you also have my tasks. And it looks like, I'm wondering if this never got finished. Or you guys are going to be using tasks, correct?
Yeah, we're working on that. We won't have any tasks probably by Monday, maybe. Okay.
I have a question about this. Can you create subtasks within the task?
You can, so sort of, the way it works is like, if this was the Let me just create this in one of the. So because this isn't set up, it's not auto creating them. So I'm just going to make a couple fake ones real fast. Let's say that this is for. I forgot who is the is it Matt or Corey? What was the name of the manager?
Gary.
Gary. Yeah. Okay. So I just made a task for myself. So now when I go to the manager interface, I can see my tasks, and now I have a task in that. In the description here, you can make like a little checklist. Okay. So like if you have a series of things that ordering equipment like has to happen, I could say like the first thing is, call company, and the next one is, and you could standardize all this in the template. Yeah, then you can come in and say like, okay, I did that, or whatever. And you can add new ones. So like I could say this is in progress, and I did the first thing, which is reserve, call and reserve, and the last one is like send deposit or something like that. And so I still keep the task as in progress, and I've got a couple other things to do there.
Yeah, it just eliminates that visual of having like 100 tasks. If there's 3 drop points in that task, it's only one task, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. And I was going to say that I'm glad you brought that up, because I told Sean this the other day. I have one client who I think they literally have like 120 tasks that they want done on a project. And I had that conversation of like, try to group them, because it just becomes noise in the system if you have like that many things. And then, yeah, so you're thinking about it the right way.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
And then in the manager interface, what I will do, we can adjust this, is what we were just saying. For the in progress and next week, we will make this or filter this. So that is, and the user.
I couldn't add it in that filter. I don't know if I was doing it wrong. I had to do it on the full screen
that we want.
Oh.
But in this, what this is going to do is your in progress, and next week will show you yours. The scheduled, we could do the same thing on each one of these. So it would be yours. If you want to view someone else's, you would go to all projects, and then you could either search for the name of the project or just see everything. But we'll make sure that there's no filter for users on that one. Does that make sense?
Yeah. When we're on this screen, see how it says filter 1? If Gary goes top to the right.
Oh, this, yeah.
So if you go into like the normal view, not the edit view. Right. So if I go in and I change a filter, I just, want to look at something random, and I change this. Is it changing it for everybody in the manager view?
No. So this filter is an interface level filter. And so that's just like, I'm just changing what I want to see here. But there is a, in this one here, like if I set on the tab itself, if I change the filters in this, it's not messing with that. Actually, I wonder if it's because I didn't publish it. You might be right.
I'm asking because I changed one of those filters, and then when I went back to this page, it kept that filter. So
for you, it will.
Okay.
So yeah, I just did double check. When I click this, I have 4 conditions that are in this. And when I publish it, the condition or the filters that I set at this level are different than the ones that are set here. Because we can also turn off the ability for people to filter this. But yeah, when you go look at this, I did filter for the active user. And this one, it says there's hidden filters that are in progress that you can't see.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Quick thing is on like sum. So this is Gary, right? If Gary wants to know, hey, how much work do I have scheduled for the next week? Where is he going? Is that always dashboard? Can we add totals to these types of interfaces? Like at the top, the show, what's the total revenue? What's the total number? I went to
This or on this particular interface, it is not possible to show that. I'm wondering if
Timeline had like a revenue count, but not, it was like a number of jobs, not a.
yeah, I would say that I would probably say if you guys make a list of what revenue or numbers you want to see, we'll have to make a new page on the manager interface that could be similar to like this one. You know, I don't know if this is close to what you're talking about, but we could make like a dashboard that is relevant to managers. The other thing, what's that?
Like their own personal dashboard. So they would go into this dashboard, it'd be their projects for this month, for next month, for whatever we want to see.
Yeah, as just a piece of advice for scaling this and making it easier to manage. Like I was saying with the duplicating for the Spanish version, like you can do this and say, I'm duplicating the production dashboard and now we're going to move it to the manager interface. So now I have this one could be called like manager production, right? Which is maybe what you want. But the only problem is that if you come up with better ideas on how to manage the dashboard here, you have to do that in both places now. So I am a big fan of whenever possible, try to just adjust the filters on your core interfaces to work for a manager or a lead or a sales rep or like anyone that might want to access it, just because long term it's easier. But it doesn't, it's just a trade-off. You can duplicate it whenever you want. I just would say, I would lean towards let's modify this one to make it work for them. And then the next person's going to have some other requests. And can you merge that to have it still work together? But there definitely are times where it makes sense to just split it.
Okay. So is there anything else Monday morning that you guys need before log in here and know what's going down?
So this is it.
I honestly don't think so right now. I mean, we've got backups in case, you know, we know how to handle things if we completely get stuck here. So I guess it's simply get out there and break it a little bit, face.
Yeah.
Because this is it.
My only question is when, so as a manager, I'm assigning a lead to one of my foremen, Nate, who has different painters underneath of them, and he'll assign them as members. Now, when we go to schedule, because he's able to do more than one project at once, on the calendar, it will stack up and it's not going to only allow him to see one project at a time.
Correct.
Yes. So like from this view, I don't know if I'll try and do what you're saying. If Elias had, well, these are the same project, but let's say that I'm also having this one at the same time. He's going to see anything that's on his calendar, and yeah, they can overlap, and he's still the assigned person. And if that makes sense, so yeah, you can have overlapping projects for the same sub.
So Nate's
Now,
row deep.
Okay. So as far as like his listed capacity, then will that shorten the timeline of the projects, or is that going to calculate how many projects are scheduled on that day?
Yeah, so the listed capacity is literally just to give when I drop it on the calendar, it fills it for the initial placement and it has nothing to do with anything else after that. So as soon as you like, you're not restricted by the capacity. It's basically just like a math helper for Anissa or D to just roughly get the right length on the first placement. That's all it does. And then you can place 6 projects on the same person because that capacity isn't like a limit, like a hard limiter. It's just each project that you place would be total hours divided by that person's capacity. And the next one, same thing, total hours of that project divided by their listed capacity. So it's the same, like it's just applying that math to each placement of the job or the project.
So if I'm understanding, then his like timeline won't be as accurate then, because if I have say a 40-hour project, a 32-hour project, and a 16-hour project starting on one day, it's going to show like with his capacity, he could get each one of those projects done in a day, but we might have one member on one project, 2 on another one, 3 on another one.
Yeah. So Matt, I put Nate's capacity at 16 hours to guess because 2 people. for a day. But if he puts 4 people on it and D scheduled it for what she thinks is going to be 3 days, it's up to you or Nate to know it's only going to be a day and then I need another job moved up for the next one. It's just a guess to say like, all right, 160 hour job, I'm giving it to Nate. I'm going to guess about 10 days for it to take. And then
you guys, yeah, all of you and your manager interface, if you go to the project and you're talking to your lead and he's like, hey, I have this on my calendar till the 18th. We can definitely get this done on the 16th. You would just come in and say, okay, the new end date is the 16th. And then D would see on her end that the project is now only 2 days.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to like block or not allow him to get work scheduled then.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could also extend the project, same thing. Like, hey, we need more time. Okay. Can you finish it by the end of the week? And then you change the end date of that project. Same thing.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, yeah, I would, whoever said it jokingly, I would say, I'm not joking. I would encourage you to go in and try to like do a test project all the way through. The one thing I will say for just expectation setting is anytime we go live with a new system, especially when we're migrating data, there will be things that are like little bugs, or just when you get real data in the system, it doesn't work quite right, or it takes a minute to like finesse and get the things dialed in. So I'm assuming, Sean, that the structure is going to be, you guys are meeting regularly, maybe multiple times a day for the first couple of days, but I want to make sure that your team, or like you, Sean, and us are meeting for at least 15 minutes a day for the first week, so that if there are issues, we don't do not keep any issues to yourself. Like if you're like, hey, this doesn't seem to make sense. It might not even be an error. It just like is not matching up with how you need something to work. Bring all those issues to Sean. And this is my recommendation, and Sean, you can do with it what you want. But I would say Sean's the owner of the implementation. So he's interfacing with all the PMs. All the PMs get your feedback to Sean. And then when he comes on the call, he'll present all the issues or whatever, and then we'll tackle them. But I would say anticipate the least favorite part of this for you guys is going to be the 2 weeks after migration, and then it will start to get a lot better.
So I hope it's by January 6th, we're rocking and rolling out there.
That's right.
So Chris, we're going to do the same thing we did. We're going to create a WhatsApp group so everyone can put in any issues or any feedback that they have. If we need to wait for the meeting, if not, we'll do the same thing, send it to Marcel if it's a quick update or fix. And I'm taking any of the trainings.
Are you guys were thinking about moving to Slack? Is that still a possibility?
Yeah, but not like tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's a nice.
The reason why we're going really hard right now and automating a bunch of stuff inside of Slack. So like when messages come in, we can like click and have it convert to a task in our task management and stuff like that. So WhatsApp is just like, it's just a little slower, and one other place for Marcel to check. And so it's more likely that stuff gets missed.
We're taking it all out of WhatsApp and putting it in Slack, me and Rico.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, let me know if you guys need anything else. And Sean, we just need to sync up about the vendors. That's probably the most important thing. But the QuickBooks integration, and then getting every subcontractor in QuickBooks as a vendor, and then getting those vendors synced up with our subs in Paint OS.
Okay, they are in there, or they should be. They might be under a different name because their name is their physical, and their business name is different. So I can check on how to connect them, but they should. We're paying them. We've paid them in QuickBooks before. So
okay. Well, the way that the connection happens is I just added this. So in the table here, there's these are like all of your leads right here. So you just need to say which vendor, and I don't think that we've pulled a list of the new vendors from your guys' account yet, but this would just be, you come in and say, Nate is not example vendor. He's actually, Elias or whatever.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
That makes sense. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you. We'll talk later.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you found this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video valuable. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I put out content like this to help as many people as I can. And as everyone knows, the algorithms like all of the feedback, the comments, the likes, and subscribing. So please do that, and we'll see you in the next video.